I would like to welcome everyone to MTRI's 2022 Summer Seminar Series. Each week in July and August, we'll be hosting a talk on the biodiversity and conservation of Guestbowick, Southwest Nova Scotia. My name is Morgan Snare, and I am a summer research assistant here at the Mersey Tobiatic Research Institute. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that MTRI is in and we are meeting from Guestbowick, one of the 7 districts of Mi'kma'ki, homeland of the Mi'kmaq people. We acknowledge the treaties of peace and friendship, and we thank the Mi'kmaq people for their generosity in sharing their homeland with us. MTRI is a research-based nonprofit nestled in Southwest NS near Keikli National Park and Historic Site, and also within the Southwest Nova Scotia Biosphere Reserve. Our mission is to promote, conserve, and sustain biodiversity in Guestbowick and beyond. Tonight, I'm very pleased to introduce Carter Feltham and Noah Hardy from MTRI and Costal Action, respectively. Next, I will hand the seminar over to Carter and Noah, but I would like to remind everyone to please keep your mics muted, and if you have any questions during the talk, please type them in the chat window or wait until the question period at the end. Carter and Noah, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Morgan. So today we're here to talk about the Nova Scotia Herp Atlas and a little bit about behind the scenes and kind of like what's gonna happen, because we'd like to let everybody know what we're doing with it. So I'm going to give it over to Noah to start us off.
All right, so as you can see, there's frogs, turtles, snakes, and salamanders on this slide. And that raises the question, what is a herp? And then if we want to jump to the next slide. And so herps is a term given to reptiles and amphibians. The study of reptiles and amphibians is called herpetology. As a group, they are called herpofauna. And really what this means is that it's the study of non-avian reptiles and amphibians. And so if you look at the cladistic tree, we don't actually see birds included in the herps because we are talking about more of the ectothermic tetrapods. And so what this means in Nova Scotia is that we are talking about snakes, frogs, turtles, and salamanders. If you don't mind jumping to the next one, Carter. I'm going to start introducing these species with the frogs. And so with frogs, there are 8 different species found in Nova Scotia, and I'm going to break them up into 3 different groups now. And so the first group I'm going to be talking about is toads. Our species of toad in the province is the Eastern American toad. So what separates toads from the other groups of frogs in the province is that they're lacking the back webbing on the foot. And another identification feature for these this species is that if you look on the back, they have those bumps over the back, and that is special to this species, and no other frog species in the province really has those markings. And the next group I'm going to talk about is the tree frog. So if you look at these photos, you can kind of see the circular toe pads at the end of the tree frog's toes. And that's what separates this frog from the other 2 groups of frogs in the province. Something really special about this frog is this is the frog that you'll most commonly hear calling in the spring. Adults will reach around 1 inch, and they will produce a call that's heard over 1 kilometer, and it's quite a spectacular feat. And so finally, I'm going to talk about the third group of frogs, and that's the true frogs. So I think that's what most people think of when they think of a frog. And that's a frog with a fully webbed back foot. And so I'm just going to quickly brush over how to identify some of these frogs. I'm going to start with the mink frog and the green frog. So it's the frog on the top left and the bottom left. And so how you differentiate these 2 species is that usually the mink frog won't have the solid banding over the legs. It has more of a broken banded pattern, and it's more circular patterning on the legs. But still, that isn't like an absolute way to tell, but a sure way to tell with these 2 species is if you were looking at the foot of a mink frog, the third and the first toe will be the same length, whereas on a green frog, the first toe will be longer than the third toe. And so finally, I'm going to talk about the American bullfrog in comparison to the green frog. So if you look at the green frog, again, on the bottom left-hand corner of the slide, you can see that they have those folds of skin going back behind the eyes and above the eardrums, and that's called the dorsal fold. And then if you look at the American bullfrog, which is the bottom middle photo, it's lacking a dorsal fold. The American bullfrog is also the largest species of frog within the province. And then I'll just say that easy way to identify the wood frog is if you look at the face, it has that black mask, and that is very distinguishing to that species in comparison to other species. And then finally, the leopard frog and the pickerel frog can sometimes be mixed up in identification. But if you look at the pickerel frog, they have much more rectangular patterning, and it's in a fluid pattern going up their back, whereas on the leopard frog, they have circular patterning on the back. It's also bordered by that lime green coloration, and the patterning is more sporadic over the frog. Now I'm going to talk about the 4 turtle species in the province. I'm going to start with the eastern painted turtle. So how you identify this turtle species is that nice yellow coloration over the face, which blends into the red markings when closer to the body and shell. And it's the smallest turtle species in the province, and it's one of my personal favorites. Next, I'm going to be talking about the common snapping turtle. So how you identify this turtle species is that it's the largest turtle in the province. It has a serrated back edge to its shell, which looks very different from any of the other turtle species in the province. This turtle is said to have a very prehistoric look. It has a long tail with spines over the back of the tail, and it has a very large head. So something about the common snapping turtle is that because of that large head, it's the only turtle species in the province which can't retract its head into the body, and that's kind of what gives it such an aggressive perception, when really it's only defense mechanism. These turtles are a lot more passive in water where they don't feel as threatened. Next, I'm going to be talking about the wood turtle, which is the bottom left-hand photo. So this turtle can be identified by that wood grain shell, as well as the red coloration closer to the back of the appendages, closer to the body and shell. Now I'm going to be talking about the Blandings turtle, and that's the bottom right-hand photo. So this turtle can be identified by the high domed shell, which some say kind of looks like an old army helmet. And a great way to identify this turtle species is that bright yellow throat. It's very distinguishable. And this is also the second largest freshwater turtle species in the province. Now I'm going to be talking about the salamander species in the province. So there's 5 different salamander species, and I'm going to break them down into 3 different groups. And so first I'll talk about mole salamanders. So I'll start off by saying like what makes a mole salamander special in comparison to the 2 other groups. And that's that when they lay their eggs hatch in a vernal pool, and they have gill buds, which then retract into the body and form true lungs, which then these adult stages, as you can see here on this slide, they have true lungs and they have a fully terrestrial lifestyle, except for when going into those vernal pools to breed. And that's the only time that you'll most likely see these salamanders is around springtime when they're going to those breeding pools. They're pretty much inactive on the surface throughout the other months of the year. And so how you identify these 2 species is that on the top row, the yellow spotted salamander is very distinguishable by those yellow spots, and the blue spotted salamander has blue spotting over the sides of its body. Next, I'm going to be talking about the lungless salamanders. So what's different between a mole salamander and a lungless salamander is that the lungless salamanders don't have that true lung system such as the mole salamander. So they have permeable skin, meaning that they breathe through their skin. And the 2 species of lungless salamander we have here in the province is the eastern redback salamander and the 4-toed salamander. So how you differentiate these 2 species is if you happen to have a chance to look at the toes of the eastern redback salamander, they do have 5 toes, whereas namesake, the 4-toed salamander has 4 toes. There can be some color differentiation for sure. There's a lot of different morphs of eastern redback salamander within the province. This could be the most common phase is the one in the middle and the left-hand photo, which is the eastern redback salamander with that prominent red stripe on the back. But if you look at the right-hand photo on this slide, that's still an eastern redback salamander. It's just in the lead-black phase. There has also been a full red phase noted in the province before. So now another way to identify these two species, though, is if you were to look at the underbelly of an eastern red-backed salamander, the belly would be black with white speckled-ting, whereas if you were to look at the underbelly of a four-toed salamander, it would be white with black speckled-ting. And finally, for the last group of salamanders is the newts. So if you look at the photo on the left-hand side, that's a red F stage. So that's the terrestrial juvenile stage of the red spotted newt. And so these individuals will kind of look over the land and look for new aquatic water bodies where they will then live their life and develop into the adult aquatic stage where they will then not really leave that water body. And as you can see, the coloration changes from that red. The red is to deter predators, but then they turn into that olivey yellow when in the pond to help blend. And the big thing that differentiates this species from the other species is that paddled tail. So their tail is flattened lengthwise to help them adapt to their aquatic lifestyle. And then finally, the last species I'm going to be talking about is snakes here in the province. So there are 5 different species of snakes in the province. And I'm going to start by introducing the eastern ribbon snake, which is the top left-hand photo. Shout out to Carter for getting that wonderful photo. We have the maritime garter snake in the middle, as well as the red-bellied snake on the top right-hand side. So why I'm introducing these 3 snakes at the same time is that they have some similar attributes, and that is that they all have keeled scales. So they have a much rougher feel as well as appearance. So what that keeled scale is it's basically, if you think of a diamond, there's one edge of the diamond that's raised out more than the other, and that's what kind of gives them that rougher feel. And so another thing that these 3 snake species have in common is that they're all live bearing. And so now for the other 2 snake species in the province, the smooth green grass snake as well as the ringneck snake. These 2 species both have smooth scales and they are both egg-laying species. So I'm just going to quick touch over how to identify some of these species in comparison to others. First off, I'm going to start by talking about the eastern ribbon snake. Again, that's the top left-hand photo, to the maritime garter snake, which is the middle photo. So the maritime garter snake has a checkered patterning underneath the striping, whereas the eastern ribbon snake has that slate black on the back underneath the striping. Another thing is that the eastern ribbon snake has that white teardrop in front of the eye, whereas that's usually lacking on the maritime garter snake. The next 2 species I'm going to talk about is the red-bellied snake and the ringneck snake. So the bottom and top right-hand photos on this slide. And so how you can differentiate these 2 is that, as namesake, the ringneck snake has that solid ring around the neck, but sometimes the red-bellied snake can have that ring as well, but usually you'll just see that dot behind the head as well as a dot on both sides of the neck. And so if that does happen to have the ring, the red-bellied snake, the sure way to identify that species is that the keeled scales, if you see that, it's a red-bellied snake. If it's a smooth-scaled snake, it's a ringneck snake. And so now, what is the Herp Atlas? The Herp Atlas is a citizen science project that was started in 2021. It tracks the distribution and spatial trends of reptiles and amphibians across the province over time. This project is led by the Mersey-Tobiatic Research Institute, and it involves researchers as well as organizations across the province. So the original Herp Atlas, here's what the original Herp Atlas page used to look like. And this project ran from 1998 to 2003. So over that 5 years, there was 189 volunteer atlasers who collected around 6,200 records. And as you can see, if you look at the map, there was a few areas within the province that didn't get quite as many observations as I think the original project would have liked to get. And so that's something that we're hoping to do, is kind of fill in those gaps. And Carter's going to touch on that more later. And so the atlas included general observations as well as targeted squares. And so why are we doing the Herp Atlas? The overreaching goal is to increase the collective knowledge base of reptiles and amphibians within Nova Scotia. And equally important though, however, is the engagement of non-scientists of all ages and abilities in parts of the province in nature study and conservation. So it's really important to get people out here looking for herps and sending observations in and just building that fondness of herpetiles in the province, and it really helps to drive conservation. So we have multiple objectives with the project, and some of those objectives are looking at the distributions of species within the province, timing, so when are these species most active in the province, important places, and that isn't always like a positive thing. Sometimes an important place could be like a road mortality hotspot. It's still very important information to collect, which is beneficial to the species as well as researchers. Abundance, rare species, as well as a big part of this project is public engagement.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Herp Atlas so far and what's to come. So far with the Herp Atlas, we've been taking in sightings through iNaturalist and our Herp Atlas project. And we've been taking in sightings through our Nova Scotia Herp Atlas Gmail account as well. And so far, we're over 6,800 observations to date, which we've already surpassed the original Atlas in far less time. We've only been running for about a year and a half. And to date, we have over 1,200 observers. And these are not necessarily the same as the original Herp Atlas, but still we're engaged with at least 1,200 people, which is amazing to say in a year and a half. I've collected some of the sightings from iNaturalist and sort of condensed them into counties. So you can see that there are some counties that we're still getting tons of sightings from, and there are a couple that we haven't had as many sightings from. So we would hope to see a bit more engagement in those areas. And I broke it down even further into hotspots and cold spots. So you can see where some of the real hotspots are. Obviously through Halifax, Wolfville, Keji, and then the hotspot I like to call Noah because that's where he lives, and he's populated the whole area with sightings of herps. And there are some cold spots that very much align with the original Herp Atlas as well. These are areas that are difficult to get to. There's not as many people living there, so we don't see as many sightings there. Some things that we've detected with the Herp Atlas so far are invasives. There is a small population of pond sliders in Halifax. This is a good way, the Herp Atlas is a good way of keeping an eye on these species and seeing if they are moving, because they may be taking resources away from our native species. So what are we doing? So like, this is a very citizen science driven project. So what are the people being paid doing? We've been working very tirelessly on outreach, getting people engaged, spreading awareness, trying to educate people about the Herp Atlas and just herps in general, and why is this project important? So we've been regularly doing educational posts on Facebook, through social media sites. We've started a new trend of the weekly challenge, where we started we've been putting out challenges to look for species that are sort of missing. So we've organized into ranges that are known ranges, and then look to see where the species have not been sighted yet, and then pose the challenge for people to go look for them in those areas. And then putting a little bit of ID information about those species as well. And then we're hoping to also do some educational presentations, targeted presentations to groups just like this one, to spread more awareness and do IDs and learn how to use iNaturalist. Something very exciting is we've released our very new logo. We worked with a great designer to come up with a logo for the Herp Atlas. We're very excited about this, and we hope to start working on some merchandise soon for prizes for the weekly challenges. Something else we've been working on very hard is our new website. This website is a place that you can go and put in your sightings of herps that is instead of a naturalist or email. There's also a very key thing here is reporting effort. Something that's really important about when you look for species, any kind of species, is how much time did you spend looking for them? Because that can give us a lot of information on its own. If you spend 3 to 4 hours and you find no herps at all, that tells us just as much as if you've seen 100 herps in a pond somewhere. This is all very good information to us to let us know that, okay, something might be going on where you looked. Maybe there's something we should be looking into there. Another reason we created this website is not everybody likes iNaturalist. And because it does post things publicly and you can look and see where species were found, this is a way to anonymously report sightings that the locations aren't shared. And for those who don't want to post their things publicly, this is a way for you to share your data and let it be used to something useful and help us out. This site is still under construction, and we're going to be working on finishing it up and populating it with species information as well as helpful links and ID help. And what's to come? So with the Herp Atlas, we're hoping to continue our outreach for the rest of the active season through social media posts, more weekly challenges and presentations. We're hoping to finish up the website and keep that open for indefinite. We'd love to have herp sightings and effort forever. We're hoping to produce some merch soon. And then come wintertime, we'll start digging into analyzing the data that's been collected, hopefully answer some of the questions we have. And then maybe from that, be able to start doing some good work with that. Are there any questions?
Great, thank you for the awesome presentation. I see in my little direct chat window, we do have a bunch of questions. If you have any more, you can type them in the chat box or on the Facebook comment, and it'll get sent over to me as well to ask them here. So the first one we have is, are any of Nova Scotia's snakes poisonous?
I can answer this. No, so none of the snakes in Nova Scotia are venomous, I'll say, because venom is when they bite you and it hurts you. Poisonous, you have to eat it and then it hurts you. But no, they're all safe, and just most of them will run away from you if you get too close because they're very shy for the most case.
Can also vouch for that one. They absolutely will. What are the most observed species we have on the Herp Atlas?
I can also answer this because I just looked. It was the American toad.
Oh, interesting.
It's the #1 cited species across.
Interesting. Okay. I've heard it is okay to handle amphibians, but I thought they had delicate skin. Is that true? This is another one coming from Facebook.
Noah, do you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, sure. So I definitely do not recommend handling amphibians unless they're in immediate danger and it's safe for you to do so. If you're going to move it, make sure that you're always moving them in the direction that they were headed. Again, I don't recommend moving amphibians. If you were to have to move an amphibian, if you wetted your hands before, it kind of creates a protective layer that it shouldn't hurt them as much. But again, try to avoid it at all costs. And but yeah, if you do not wet your hands before handling some amphibians, as they do have permeable skin, your hands can be quite harmful to the amphibian. It can clog up their ability to breathe, as well as your hands are a lot hotter than the amphibian's body temperature, and so it can kind of shock the animal.
Great, thank you. Next Facebook question is the province helping with this monitoring? This project seems like a big deal.
Actually, yes. So they've been helping us out with sightings and things. So they have a big part in that. And they're also interested in learning more about mortality hotspots, because they would like to know, like, is there a way that we can work together to help reduce some of these mortalities? So that's one thing that they mentioned, was hoping to come up with some way to help reduce mortality, but we just need to know where this is happening so we can get started on working on some solutions.
That links very well and possibly answered our next question, which is, I've seen a lot of turtles being hit on roads around my camp. Is the Atlas helping to deal with that any?
Yep, so first step is collecting the data on the hotspots, where it's happening, so that we can start working towards some kind of solution for this.
Thank you. We also have, what areas of the province need the most attention at the moment?
Oh, yes. Let me just scroll back here to my map. There's a couple of areas where you see it's very low sightings. So it's more northern Nova Scotia. We have quite a few sightings in Cape Breton, but I'm forgetting all the county names right now, but up towards like Amherst area is really, we need some more effort up there.
Awesome. Also, we have a comment saying the new logo is getting a lot of love on our Facebook page, which is really great to hear. As well as, I have a question. So when taking photos to upload, do you have any tips on, if you have that opportune moment, like what should be included in the photo?
For frogs, I definitely recommend that the feet are one of the most important identification features. Like I was mentioning with the mink frog, like the toe length is how you kind of identify them in comparison to a green frog. So without the feet pictures, it can be very hard to identify these two species, even on iNaturalist.
Thank you. We have another Facebook question that says, what can be done along road to protect turtles, and a suggestion of possible fencing?
That was something that was brought up in a meeting at one point, was fencing to prevent turtles from getting up on the roads. I know in Ontario, there's lots of cool different things, like they have underground tunnels for turtles and different things like that. That's a little down the road for us for thinking, but just being watchful, drive slow in those key points of the year, like June is when they usually are nesting, and that's when they're traveling a lot, and that's when we have our females moving, and those are very important to protect. So just drive slow, keep your eyes out, and if you happen to see one, make sure just to move it out of immediate danger and just to the shoulder of the road. Don't move it too far, because they will travel back to where they want it to go in the first place.
Thank you. At this time, it doesn't appear like we have any questions anymore. So I'll put one last call out. If we have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or our one person on Zoom. If you want to turn your mic on, if you have any, go for that. Ron Arsenault actually just commented, there are, or at least were, fencing in Kouchibakwak National Park, which is very interesting. I believe that's in New
cool.
Brunswick. So yeah, definitely cool to see different solutions throughout different areas. I'm still not seeing any questions. So at this point, I'm going to say thank you for the phenomenal presentation. It was great to learn a little bit about the Herp Atlas and also different tips for IDing different herps around the province. For anyone interested in joining us next Thursday, August 18th, for our summer seminar, we'll be joined by Charles Bourne for his seminar on Framing the Forest, Architecture's Role in Restoring Nova Scotia's Hidden Landscapes of Extraction. I would like to thank the Region of Queens for supporting us in our seminar series. As always, you can stay up to date with our seminars by following us on Facebook. And if you would like to watch tonight's seminar again, or any of the seminars that we've had so far, you can check out our Facebook Live video or visit our YouTube channel. We hope everyone stays well, and we get to see you all again very, very soon. And thank you again, Carter and Noah, for the presentation.